The American Yoga Academy Yoga Teacher Training Manual, Chapter 1. What is Yoga? History and Origins. Overview. Yoga is a beautiful philosophy, lifestyle, and mindset that originated in India thousands of years ago. The word yoga comes from Sanskrit, the language of ancient India, and means yoking or union. Yoga is the union of mind, body, and spirit. When your physical, intellectual, and spiritual selves are working in union, your life becomes balanced. Practicing yoga gives you the ability to know all parts of yourself with compassion and awareness. In spiritual terms, yoga is the union of the individual consciousness with the universal consciousness. The practice of yoga enables you to achieve calmness, clarity, a sense of well-being, enthusiasm towards life, and peace of mind. Yoga is for everyone. To achieve this union, the practice of yoga focuses on 7 key points: the yamas, moral principles for social behavior, and niyamas, moral principles for individual behavior. Breath, movement, relaxation, nutrition, and meditation. Practicing these 7 key points of yoga rejuvenates, revitalizes, and rebalances all systems of the physical body and mind. Anyone can practice yoga. Its physical and mental health benefits are available to young and old, strong and weak, athletic and sedentary. Yoga is not a religion. People of all religions, faiths, and cultures around the world practice yoga. Yoga has evolved and blossomed over thousands of years, and numerous varieties or schools of yoga have developed. In the West, we usually equate yoga with stretching and exercise. And as you will see, yoga of movement is called Hatha Yoga and is only one of the 7 primary schools of yoga recognized in India. Here are the 7 schools. 1. Raja Yoga, the yoga of meditation. 2. Karma Yoga, the practice of selfless service leading to righteous living. 3. Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge and wisdom leading to intellectual development. 4. Hatha Yoga, the exercise and movement of the physical body through certain asanas or postures that lead to physical well-being. 5. Laja Yoga, the practice of awakening the chakras and kundalini energy by using sounds, visualizations, and the subtle body. 6. Bhakti Yoga, the practice of love and devotion leading to emotional development. 7. Mantra Yoga, the exploration of the influence of sound vibrations in a universe which science tells us is made up of vibrations. Other schools of yoga include Kripalu Yoga, Kundalini Yoga, Shivananda Yoga, Akyu Yoga, Bikram Yoga, and many more. The American Yoga Academy is based on a gentle, accessible approach to Hatha Yoga. In your own practice, you should explore and play with other forms of yoga. Familiarity with a variety of schools and practices will make your experience and your teaching even richer. Although many people in our society take up the practice of yoga to alleviate stress, stress will always be a part of life. Yoga does not eliminate stress from our lives. Rather, it teaches us to walk calmly amongst the chaos, as the eye of a hurricane is the calm at the center of the storm. At a time when many people may turn to drugs, food, television, or other narcotic influences to escape the stress of their lives, yoga practice teaches us to cope with stress on a healthier physical, mental, and spiritual level. The Shivananda Yoga Center in New York compares the human being to a car, a wonderful analogy that helps us visualize 5 of the 7 key points to yoga practice. There are 5 things a car needs to run properly: lubrication, a cooling system, electric current, fuel, and a safe and sensible driver. The asanas, or postures, of hatha yoga lubricate the body, keeping the muscles and joints flexible and smooth. The asanas also tone all of the internal organs and increase circulation without creating fatigue. The body is cooled by relaxation. The body's prana, or energy, is like the electric current of a car. Breathing exercises, pranayama, teach us to moderate and control that energy. The quality of the fuel we give our bodies depends on our nutrition. Finally, we become safer and more attentive drivers of the vehicle of the self through the practice of meditation. All of these systems depend upon each other for smooth and safe operation of the vehicle, extending and enhancing its quality of life. The history of yoga. The history of yoga is not entirely certain because its practice was passed on through word of mouth and storytelling, and for a long time its practices were secret. What we do know is that the development of yoga can be tracked back to over 5,000 years ago, and some say it may even be up to 10,000 years old. Yoga has a rich history, which can be divided roughly into 4 main time periods. Around 5,000 years ago, the beginnings of yoga were developed in northern India, and this is called the pre-classical period in the development of yoga. Early writings were usually on palm leaves, which were fragile and easily damaged or destroyed. During this pre-classical period, mystics documented their practices in a work called the Upanishads, which contains over 200 scriptures. One of the most famous of these is the Bhagavad Gita, written around 500 BC. These writings taught sacrifice of the self and development of self-discipline and wisdom. During this time, there were so many different beliefs and schools of thought that some conflicted with others. It was a confusing time. Sometime around the 2nd century, during what's called the classical period in the development of yoga, Patanjali wrote the Yoga Sutras, texts that tried to organize yoga into steps and stages to obtain enlightenment. Patanjali is considered the father of yoga, and his texts still influence yoga today. A few hundred years later, yoga teachers transformed yoga from a practice of wisdom and made it more about the body and the breath. In this post-classical period, yoga became an activity and an exercise as opposed to a lifestyle. Here, yogis began to examine the physical and spiritual connections of body, mind, and spirit, and developed the practice of hatha yoga. Modern-day yoga officially began in 1893 at the Parliament of Religions in Chicago. Swami Vivekananda spoke at this conference about yoga and unity, and Western attendees were impressed. In the early 1900s, yoga schools began opening in India. Renowned teachers of this era include Swami Shivananda, a prolific author, and Krishnamacharya and his 2 most famous students, BKS Iyengar and Patabi Jwa. The beginnings. Sacred texts. Because yoga was developed in India, it is important to understand some basic tenets of Indian philosophy. Much of this philosophy can be studied in the Vedas, which are the earliest literary records and sacred writings of India. They are full of Hindu teachings, spiritual knowledge, philosophical maxims, and rules which regulate the social, legal, domestic, and religious customs of the times. some people believe the Vedas were composed with divine inspiration. It is likely that the Vedas were compiled around 1500 BC by Vyasa Krishna Dvaipayana. There are 4 sacred Vedas that address different behaviors and rituals. The Atharva Veda details spells and charms, for example, how to heal a scorpion bite or how to attract a husband. The Rig Veda contains mantras, songs, and hymns. The Sama Veda details how to chant and contains melodies and musical notes. The Yajur Veda is a training manual for priests and explains ceremonies, prayers, and sacrifices. To teach the population the wisdom contained in the Vedas, the Upanishads were created. This collection of texts is considered to be teachings received at the feet of ancient sages and masters. These are meant for the population and not for priests or gurus. The wisdom contained in the Upanishads teaches self-knowledge and self-discipline and instructions for finding the divine within. Indian philosophy. In Indian philosophy, there is no divine being or God who manages the universe. Instead, there is a consciousness with no beginning and no end, which is a source of oneness and universal vibration. Brahman is the term used for the universal consciousness, the divine in all things. It is considered reality, bliss, and the universe itself. Atman is directly under Brahman, and it is the individual human soul or self. Atman is considered to be part of Brahman. Samsara is the reincarnation cycle, or the cycle of birth and rebirth that Atman goes through. This is considered a vicious cycle, and the goal of Atman is to stop the cycle. Moksha is freedom from samsara. To achieve moksha means going beyond the limits of individualism. It is detaching yourself from the world and worldly things. Maya is an important Indian concept that refers to illusion, and interestingly, the word Maya is the root word for magic in English. An example of an illusion would be that my body has a soul. In reality, my soul has a body. In Indian philosophy, it appears that you have not lived before, but according to their beliefs, you have. Karma is the divine law of cause and effect. What you put out into the world is what you will get back. A person's samsara is determined by his karma. So, an evil life could mean being reincarnated in the next life as an animal or a disabled or disadvantaged person. Dharma is considered the law of the universe, and it pertains to living out the purpose you were created for. Metaphysics. Metaphysics is the branch of philosophy that studies the first principles of being, identity and change, space and time, causality, necessity and possibility. It includes questions about the nature of consciousness and the relationship between mind and matter. Indian metaphysics are very interesting and are an integral part of the development of yoga. The physical body. Pancha kosha is an important concept of Indian philosophy. Pancha means 5, and kosha means sheaths. The concept of 5 koshas comes from an Upanishad that helps people understand the concept of self. It is a theory that explains existence, where each layer or sheath of the body is graded from the most physical to the most spiritual. According to this concept, every soul lives in a body comprised of 5 sheaths or levels, or graduated dimensions. The first sheath is the physical body, and then there are 4 other subtle bodies that surround that physical body in layers. We cannot see the subtle bodies. We can only see the physical body. While these subtle bodies have distinct features, they do not have clear boundaries. Notice that each body has the word Maya in it, which means illusion. According to Indian philosophy, we are a soul, and we reside in a body. Therefore, what you can see is not the real person, because the person is a soul, which resides in a body. So, the body is simply an illusion. Starting from the outer sheath, the physical body, the 5 koshas are Annamaya kosha, the physical body. This body is made up of food. Pranamaya kosha, the layer made of life energy, which comes from the breath. It is thought that we only have so many breaths, so in this philosophy, it is important to control and elongate your breath. Manomaya kosha, the mental and emotional layer of the body. It's made up of feelings, emotions, desires, and thoughts. This is also where habits, likes, and dislikes reside. Vijnana Maya kosha, the intelligence layer of the body. It's the intellect which keeps the emotions under control. It is where analysis and reasoning lie. Anandamaya kosha. This is where the soul resides. It is sometimes called the bliss body because bliss is considered the natural state of souls. The soul or spirit. In Indian philosophy, the soul is believed to be an internal organ where thoughts and feelings reside. This organ is called Antakarana in Sanskrit, and it means interior sense organ. It is considered to be the link between the body and the spirit, and it is the source of the mind, heart, soul, and conscience. Antakarana refers to the entire psychological and emotional system and consists of 4 parts. Manas, the mind, the lower part of the rational mind that connects with the external world. Chitta, memory or mind stuff. It's the consciousness where experiences, memories, and perceptions are stored. Buddhi, intellect. It's the higher part of the mind that makes decisions. Ahamkara, the ego. It is the part of the mind that attaches or identifies as the ego, or the part that understands I am. The natural world. According to ancient Indian philosophy, the universe is made up of energy. There are 3 different kinds of energy called gunas that are in all living and non-living things. Gunas are attributes of the natural world's energy, and they can be considered good or bad. The 3 gunas are tamas. Tamas is darkness, destruction, and death. This attribute is dull, slow, and lazy. It signifies endings. The tama component is considered the lowest, and in a person it is reflected by laziness, greed, and attachment to worldly things. Rajas. Rajas is passion, energy, and birth. This attribute is creative, strong, passionate, and heated. It signifies stimulation and desire. The Raja component spurs on action, so if a person is predominantly sattvic or tamasic, the Raja component will bring actions to reflect and magnify those 2 gunas. Sattva, goodness, purity, and light. This attribute is peaceful, harmonious, and balanced. This is the component that is nearest to divinity. It is characterized by happiness, patience, forgiveness, and faith. A guna can be thought of as a quality or a virtue. Some believe that the 3 gunas within an individual can be balanced by practicing yoga. For the most part, these gunas are used to understand natural occurrences, things, and people. For example, a boulder or a rude, abusive person could be viewed as tamasic. A thunderstorm or a type A personality could be viewed as rajasic, and a fresh fruit, a fragrant flower, or a monk could be considered sattvic. While all the materials in the universe have virtues or gunas, according to Indian philosophy, they are also made of 5 great elements called Pancha Mahabhut. Note that the word Pancha means 5. These 5 elements are present in the universe and also in our bodies and correspond to our 5 senses. These are the 5 great elements. Akash, space or openness. It means freedom to move or vibrate. This element is related to hearing because we need air and vibration to make sound. Space, also called ether, has qualities that are light, clear, and vast. Vayu, air and movement. Vayu means motion. This element is related to the sense of touch and the skin. Air has qualities that are dry, light, chilly, and vibrating. Tej, fire. Tej means friction and heat. In the body, this fire is associated with digestion and intelligence. The digestion process is likened to the body's furnace, and intelligence is likened to brilliance or a spark. This element is related to the sense of sight. Fire has qualities that are hot, sharp, and dry. Jala, water. Jala means fluidity and flowing. In the body, water binds cells together, and it also allows us to taste. This element is related to qualities that are binding, cohesive, cool, liquid, and soft. Prithvi, earth. Prithvi means solid, hard, and dense. In the body, this refers to bones, muscles, teeth, and nails. It's related to strength, structure, and the sense of smell. This element is related to qualities that are heavy, dull, hard, and dense. Summary of the 5 great elements. Akash, sound, ears. Vayu, touch, skin. Tej, vision, eyes. Jala, water, taste. Prithvi, earth, smell. Patanjali, the father of yoga. About 2,500 years ago, the great Indian sage Patanjali Maharishi wrote a series of sutras, or brief sayings, that provide an endless source of wisdom for the practice of yoga. The word sutra in Sanskrit means thread, and all of these sutras together weave a kind of philosophical and practical tapestry. Scholars are not certain whether Patanjali lived in the 1st century BC or 100 to 200 years AD. There is also no certainty as to whether the sutras were a collaboration of multiple authors or if Patanjali worked alone. Regardless, Patanjali, a wise yogi from the mountainous region of northern India, wrote works that endure to today. Patanjali's definition of yoga. Patanjali defines yoga as chitta, vritti, nirodha. Let's break these Sanskrit words down into understandable chunks. Chitta means consciousness or mind stuff. Vritti means fluctuations, changes, or movement. Nirodha means restraint, suppression, and control. In other words, Patanjali writes that yoga is experiencing the quiet and divine within when we restrain the fluctuations of our thoughts and consciousness. Some might translate Chitta Vritti Nirodha as yoga is the silencing of the chatter of the mind. Patanjali's 8 limbs of yoga were meant as a guide and path to help people achieve Chitta Vritti Nirodha, the silencing of the chatter of the mind. In the first 4 sutras, Patanjali defines yoga this way, quote, "Yoga is the progressive settling of the mind into silence. When the mind is settled, we are established in our own essential state, which is unbounded consciousness. Our essential nature is usually overshadowed by the activity of the mind." Close quote. The 8 limbs of yoga. Fundamental to Patanjali's conception of yoga are the 8 limbs, a progressive series of disciplines which purify the body and mind, ultimately leading the yogi to Chitta Vritti Nirodha and enlightenment. Attention to these 8 limbs develops a complete yoga practice and a satisfying and peaceful way of life. These 8 limbs are yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Although the yoga you will be studying and teaching in this course focuses primarily on asana, pranayama, and meditation, you will become familiar with all 8 limbs of yoga in order to guide your students and answer their questions. Your teaching and example will demonstrate the first 2 key points of yoga, the yamas and niyamas. Yamas. In Sanskrit, yama means restraint. Patanjali's 5 yamas are practices that focus on developing disciplined social attitudes and behaviors. They are moral injunctions aimed at liberating ourselves from our lower, more primitive impulses and actions. They should be practiced and developed in word, thought, and deed. Niyamas. These are methods of personal and individual discipline based on self-purification and self-regulation. The niyamas are practices that enhance how we relate to ourselves inwardly, intimately, and internally, developing the intellectual and spiritual aspects of our yoga practice. Asana. This 3rd limb in Patanjali's system is what we in the West often associate with yoga. In Sanskrit, the word asana means seat, literally the connection of your physical body with the earth. The postures of asana practice bring us fully and completely into our physical bodies, and through exercise connect us with the earth and all physical beings. You may choose to use the terms posture or poses in your class, and understanding the root meaning of the word asana may help you and your students understand that there's ultimately more to yoga than a good workout. Pranayama. As you develop your own yoga practice and begin to teach others, you will often begin and conclude practice by calling attention to the breath and other energizing exercises. Our breathing is the most obvious form of prana, or life energy. Pranayama is a practice that teaches restraint and regulation of the breath, which can channel and shift the energy that flows through and around our bodies. It can help regulate mood, heart rate, energy, and attitude. In this course, we will focus primarily on the use of the breath to enhance the physical practice of the asanas and relaxation. Pratyahara. Pratyahara is the redirecting of the 5 senses inward towards a more profound understanding of the self. The word pratyahara means flowing towards the center. It is a way of discovering that there is more to ourselves and more to life than outward appearances and sensory pleasures. Dharana. Dharana is concentration. Our minds are full of chatter, bits of overheard conversation, grocery lists, song lyrics, cautions, and memories. The practice of dharana, or concentration, begins to clear the mind of all that clutter by focusing our mental and intellectual energy on one consistent, still thing. In your teaching, you might remind your students that if their minds wander, they can bring their attention back to their breath, or silently repeat to themselves as they inhale, "I am," and as they exhale, "relaxed." I am relaxed. These practices allow us to begin to disengage from all that mind clutter, preparing the mind for the stillness of meditation. Dhyana. Once the mind has been focused and concentration has shifted from the external senses to an inner stillness, the practice of dhyana, or meditation, can begin. Meditation is the state of pure thought and absorption in the object of meditation. There is still duality in dhyana. When dhyana is mastered, it leads to the next step, samadhi. The state of samadhi, or bliss, being happy for no specific reason at all, is the ultimate goal of a yoga practice. This is the superconscious state in which non-duality, or oneness, is experienced. This is the deepest and highest state of consciousness, where body and mind have been transcended and the yogi is one with the self, or God. Conclusion. Now that you've learned the history of yoga and Indian philosophy, remember that practicing yoga or becoming a yoga instructor doesn't mean you must believe or embrace any philosophy that goes counter to your own deeply held religious or cultural beliefs. Yoga is a peaceful philosophy that combines well with religions, lifestyles, cultures, and mindsets. It is not necessary to give up your religious or cultural beliefs to fully experience yoga. You can integrate the peaceful and healthful practices of yoga that make sense to you into your personal philosophy, religion, and lifestyle. As a yoga teacher, remind yourself and your students that all journeys begin with a single step. Your own goal may be to sleep better at night, or develop flexibility in a stiff back, or to deal more calmly with the stresses of life. Practicing yoga has so many benefits, and yoga is a lifelong process. You do not do yoga, you become yoga. We hope you enjoyed this audio recording of Chapter 1 of the American Yoga Academy's Yoga Teacher Training Manual. Please hit the like button and comment below if this was helpful for you. Thank you and namaste.